V8 is definitely powerful enough.
So guys, it's been a while because as you can see, it is the middle of winter, but a lot of you guys don't know this because before I started a YouTube channel, when I was buying my GT4, the car I originally wanted was this pretty much. So it's a 2014 Audi R8. Now the 2014s had the newer headlights. They were a little bit refreshed, but most importantly, the automatics came with a dual clutch, but I actually wanted a manual non-automatic. And for a lot of reasons, I ended up getting the GT4, newer car, warranty and everything. But today we have the opportunity to drive the R8, and now that we're about 4 years later, I could buy this car just with the equity I have in my GT4, which is finance. I'm not rich by any means, but I could technically own this car with no payments, kind of the Ed Bullion way. So today we're going to take this car for a drive, see if it's worth buying, see if it's worth maybe trading in the GT4 and being a little more financially responsible but still having a supercar. I've never driven a 2014 facelift R8. I don't know if I've ever driven a V8 R8. So today we're going to try that and we're going to see if it's worth being financially responsible and owning this car. Now let's start this car up. This car has an Acropovic exhaust, so the V8 is going to sound a lot better than a regular one would. But ready? 3, 2, 1. It's not a cold start because we started it before, but it's not bad at all. Okay, so we are in the Audi R8 V8 2014. 2014-15 is definitely the best year for this car because of what's right here, the transmission, the dual clutch. Now, you guys might be hating on the fact that I'm shifting with the center, but honestly, come on. Look at this. It has a satisfying center shifter. Why would I want to use the paddles, which are just kind of boring? This is just so much more exciting, and it makes it feel so much more like a supercar. Now, here is the problem. This car, the 2014s and the 15s, got the updated transmission, the dual clutch, whereas the older ones had the tronic, which was the single clutch. But, we all know as a car guy, if there's a supercar, a manual option, that's kind of what you got to do. So, as much as this automatic is great, it's always going to be overshadowed by the optional 6-speed gated manual transmission, which was actually the last ever gated manual transmission made on a car up until recently when the Pagani Utopia and the new Koenigsegg CC850 came out, but those are not even in the same world, so I don't think we need to consider that. I think we can still consider the 2014-15 Audi R8s to be the last ever gated cars, and we all see what the market has done with gated cars. So this transmission has been getting very overshadowed, but this transmission is great. Honestly, it is good. I don't know if it's for me, but it is a really good transmission. People kind of forget what this car originally was intended to be. This car was intended to be a substitute for the guy, the dailies, a 911 Carrera 4S, but this is just something that's a little more of an exotic version of his daily sports car. So this car does all that stuff a lot better than the 911 in my opinion. I think it's built a lot better, it's higher quality. It feels more exciting to drive. It also has all-wheel drive, and it's a Quattro Audi all-wheel drive, which we all know is a great all-wheel drive system. You get that exotic look. You don't get the back seats, but let's be real, who uses back seats in 911s anyways? Now, yes, there's a V10 to this car, and yes, it's a Lambo engine, and yes, it's good. But if I'm honest with you, this V8 is definitely powerful enough. I don't think you need more power than this. Yeah, if it's one of your many supercars and you're not dailying it, a V10 would make this car so exciting. But if you just want to go about in your daily drives, the power in this V8 with the dual clutch, it's still very satisfying to drive. I don't feel like I'm lacking any power. I think it has 420 horsepower, which, in my biased opinion, because my GT4 has 420 horsepower, is I think the perfect amount of horsepower to have in a car, because any faster than that, you're just going to be getting in trouble pretty quick. You're going to be catching up with the car in front of you, or you're just going to have to be working too hard to keep the car under control. This is kind of like an enjoyable amount that's still civil, and you're never going to feel like you're too slow. And who really cares about an extra few horsepower? You're not racing. If you just want this car to enjoy for yourself, this is the perfect amount of power. Now, these cars are selling roughly in the $90,000 range Canadian. Obviously in the US, probably like $70,000, I'm not too sure. But for that price range, I mean, under 100 grand, I mean, that's the same price as like a new Audi S5 with some options. And I just don't think it's even a conversation. I think if you don't need anybody in the back and you can either afford it cash without leasing or financing, or you can afford the payments on a shorter term finance because this is an older car, this is just the best thing you can get. The V8 is very reliable. It's the same V8 from the older RS4s and the S5s. You know, there is a few things in maintenance with this car that need to be done. The shocks, AC goes sometimes, little things like that. You got to spend a few $1,000s to do those. But if you're prepared for that, you will have such a good driving experience. These things regularly get up to over 100,000 kilometers. This car has 76,000 on it, and it still feels very tight, very new. I've driven a few R8s, and this it feels like one of the better ones out of them, even with these kilometers. When I was a kid, it's going to sound pretty spoiled, but I used to drive a 2011 V10 Spider R8 with the R-tronic. It was a car we had at my work, and it had less kilometers than this, but this car feels a lot tighter, and I don't know if it's because the R-tronic and the S-tronic, or the way it was maintained, or the V8, but this V8 with the S-tronic just aged so well, and it still feels as sharp as a brand new car. I mean, instant shift with the dual clutch, and you feel like you're going significantly faster than you actually are, which honestly is good because you just get to enjoy the car. You don't have to feel worried about going too fast or abusing the car. And that's another thing. With these cars going up these kilometers, are you really going to go buy a V10 engined R8, Lamborghini V10, put as many kilometers you want, not even think about it? I feel like you're always going to be worried, what if this breaks, what if that breaks, resale value, this, that. Like the V10 R8's a straight up supercar, so you're not going to want to put 76,000 kilometers on it, even though you might, but it's just going to be, you're going to be thinking about it a lot more. This is a worry-free way to daily drive a supercar, and you really don't feel guilty about racking up some kilometers on this engine, because at the end of the day, the same engine as an RS4. It's honestly just so simple and easy to use. Now, here is the question for me. I could afford to buy this car pretty much with just my equity from my GT4. Now, I'm not rich. I don't buy cars cash. I finance my GT4. I got a good deal on it and a good rate. But I'm about 4 years into the finance, and I could afford to sell that car, buy this, and have it with no payments, which is crazy to me because, again, I didn't grow up rich. I grew up dreaming of maybe one day driving these, and now I can literally get one of these with no payments. And the crazy part for me is I don't think I can do it. It will be very financially responsible. I could save up a lot more money. My payments on my GT4 are about $1,750 a month. I could save $1,750 every month, but there's one thing that I will spend $1,750 a month to have in my car, and that's a manual transmission. Because you know what? As fun as this car is, as nice as it looks, as cool as it is, as much heads as it turns, which is more than the GT4, I will pay $1,750 a month to be able to change my own gears, have a third pedal, because at the end of the day, after a while, you're going to get used to the car, and eventually it's going to just start feeling like a car. So the only thing you're really left with is a manual transmission if you have one. If you don't, this car will get boring, just like an automatic GT3 will kind of get boring. And I know some people might think I'm crazy for that and say all this stuff in the comments, but I've driven all these cars. I know what it's like. It's not the same if you don't have that manual transmission. There's very few cars that can keep you excited with their automatic, and as good of an automatic as this is not one that I will save $1,750 a month to have an automatic for. And the problem is the manual cars, they're fetching about $30,000 or $40,000 more than the automatic cars for very good reasons. So for that reason, as much as I could own this for free-ish, I know it's not actually free because I'm using money that I paid towards the GT4, but most people's cars appreciate around the same amount as their payments are. As much as I can do that and be free from car payments, for this car, I just don't think it's worth it.